8.5 is variation. And you've got a couple of different types. That first problem set says state whether each equation represents direct, joint, inverse, or combined variation. Direct variation has a formula, and it's going to look like this. Y equals kx. And joint variation is y equals kxz. It's not really important what the letters are, except for k is a constant. I know constant starts with C, so you'd think it would be C, but k is a constant, meaning it's a number. If you look at all of those equations have a bunch of letters in them and then a number. So the number that you're looking at, that's the constant. That's going to be important for us. So then inverse relation, y equals k over x, something like that. So the main difference, I think, is when you're looking at division, you're dividing by a variable, that's going to be inverse. But when you're looking at multiplication, it's direct. And if there's a couple of multiplications, it's joint. And then combined is if there's both multiplication and division. So pay attention to the differences between these formulas. Y equals kx over z or something like that. All right. So direct is multiplication. Inverse is division. Joint is more than one multiplication, and combined is multiplication and division both. All right. So the first problem set says state what type you're looking at. All right. Well, the first one's pretty easy because you can see that it's multiplication. It's 12 times m. So 12 times m, that's like the red one, right? That's direct. So let's just put D for direct. D for direct. And then it says, then name the constant of variation. All that is the number, k equals 12. Easy peasy. So I look at number 3. Number 3, it looks like multiplication. All right, you're talking about the variables. You're multiplying variables. 1/2 times b times h. So that's the purple one. That's joint. So let's write j for joint. And then k is 1/2. If you look at, I'm trying to find one that's not the same thing. Let's look at number 4. Okay, number 4 is a little bit weird because the two variables are on the same side over there. RW equals 15. What we would want to do is isolate one of the variables, and it doesn't really matter which one. So let's say we isolate R. We would divide by W in order to isolate R. All right, it's not really set up the way we want. So if we divide by W on both sides, the new equation will be R equals 15 over W. That's more like it. That looks like one of our types, okay? Which type does that look like? That's inverse. That's the blue one, right? Okay, that's inverse. So let's write I for inverse, and then K is just the number 15. Okay. So do we see any that are combined on here? Nope. I don't see any that are combined, but you're going to have direct, you're going to have joint, you're going to have inverse. Find me another joint variation. 5 is joint variation, yes. 5 is joint variation with k equal 2. Find me another inverse variation. 11 is direct. 10 is joint, or 10 is what? Inverse. 10 is inverse variation with k equal to 8. All right. So you can finish those up. Please wait until we're done because we're going to get to the harder problems now. 12, yeah, 12 is tricky, but since pi is a number, that whole thing would actually be the k. We could say k is 2 times pi because that's the number. 6.14 or whatever, or 6.28, I mean. Pi is 3.14, so 2 times that, 6.28. So it's direct with that k. All right, so you can finish that up. Please wait. We need to get to these, okay? And these are much, much harder. These are a lot harder problems because you have to use some of the stuff, all right? And there's going to be a set of steps. Basically, let me see, where can we write? Don't have a whole lot of room. But let's write the set of steps up here, okay? Step 1, we're going to write the formula. And these are the formulas. So step 1, just write one of those formulas. Okay, and they're going to tell you which one because they're going to tell you if it's direct or inverse or joint or whatever. So write one of the formulas. That's the first step. Then step 2 is going to be plug in numbers to find K value. So all these problems are the same. They're going to give you a bunch of numbers and ask you for an equation, all right? So step 1, write down the formula that we want it to look like. Step 2, we're going to plug in the numbers that they give us to find the K value. And then step 3, write formula, come on now. With K number. 3 steps. Step 1, write the formula. Step 2, plug in numbers to find the K value. Step 3, write the formula with the K number. All right. So it's not that bad. It's not that hard, but I know students kind of struggle with those steps. So everybody got those steps written down? That's what we're going to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So we look at number 13 and see how it says direct right in the problem. Okay. So step 1, we want to write the formula for direct. Okay. Now pay attention to the letters because sometimes I suppose they could give you different letters, but the direct variation formula y equals kx. So that's step 1. Step 1, just write the formula. This is direct, so we write y equals kx. Now step 2 was plug in numbers. Okay, and usually it's kind of written in this way, but plug in numbers. They got to give you all of the variable values. So notice how they give you a value for x and y. So we're going to plug those numbers in. So y is 35 and x is 7. We should be able to find the k value, right? Okay. K must be not 11. K must be 5, right? 5 times 7 is 35, or we could say divide by 7. K equals 5. All right, K equals 5. So then step 3, we're going to write the formula again, but this time we're going to include the K value. So instead of y equals kx, we're going to say y equals 5x. All right. Now, I guess I forgot step 4. There is a step 4 here because that's the formula that we want. But now the last part says find y when k equals 11, or when x equals 11. So all we have to do, all we have to do is say 5 times 11 is 55. That's your answer. All these problems work pretty much the same way. Write the formula, plug in numbers to find k, write the formula with k, and then, do what they say, I guess. All right, so let's look at number 17. So this time number 17 says jointly. Go back up and look what jointly means. Jointly is going to be more than one multiplication. All right, like, so you got to pay attention to this, to the way they word it, though. Y varies jointly as x and z is telling me y equals k x z. Look like that. They could possibly mix the numbers up on you, so you got to pay attention to the order that they write them. So step 1, write the formula. Done. Step 2, plug in the numbers. So they give me all these numbers right here to find that k value. So y is 18, X is 2, Z is 3. Might be able to do that in your head, or we can rearrange that. 18 equals 2 times 3 is 6, so 6K. Divide by 6, whatever, do it in your head. It's got to be 3, right? Sometimes we trip over algebra when we can really just do the problem in our head. K is 3. So I'm going to rewrite that equation. So that formula becomes y equals 3xz. I know the K value, the constant value is 3. I'm sorry, what? Well, right, but K is constant and X, Y, and Z are variables. X, Y, and Z could change. They could be something else, but 3 will be 3 every single time. All right. So that's my formula. Y equals 3xz, my joint variation formula. So then the last step is we want to find y when x is 5 and z is 6. So guess what? We're going to plug in x is 5 and z is 6 right there. 3 times 5 times 6. 90. Yeah, we're finding y. So yeah, y equals 90. Right. Y equals 90. Okay. So let's do 21. Okay, this one's an inverse variation. So y equals k over x. Very good. We know y equals k over x for inverse variation. So the steps are always the same. You write down the formula, then you plug in the numbers to find that k value. So we plug in these two numbers. Y is 2 and x is 2. 2 equals k over 2. So do it in your head if you can. What's k have to equal? 21. Wait. Oh, I'm doing 20. Oops. Whatever. We got 20. Oops. Um okay. Fine, let's do 21. Let's do 21. I don't know what I'm doing. I said you're right. I did say that. All right. Okay, let's do 21. It's inverse. So y equals k over x. And we're going to plug in these numbers. So 6 equals k over 5. Yeah, it's 30. And if you can't see that it's going to be 30, 30 divided by 5 is 6, you can treat this like a proportion and cross multiply if you want, or multiply both sides by 5. Maybe that's even better to cancel out. You're getting k equals 30. Yes, question? Yeah, I want you to write that formula. So we're writing step, what are we on? 3. Write out the formula again, 30 over x. Yeah, I want to see that formula. So then lastly, we have to find y when x equals 10. So plug in 10, we get y equals 3. Y equals 3. All right, we got this, right? Okay, so let's look at number 23. I guess 23 is probably the hardest one because notice it says directly and inversely. Okay, good. That's combined. Directly means multiplication. Inversely means division. So if you think about it, we start with y, and it varies directly as, notice it varies directly as z, right? So kz, and then inversely as x. So we're talking about divide by x. So that's kind of tricky, I think, right? Directly as z means multiply. Inversely as x means divide. Okay, so we've got this formula y equal kz over x. Now we're going to do the same. I mean, it's the same thing over and over, right? We're going to plug in these numbers. So that's going to say 27 equals k Z is negative 3, X is 2. All right, so I want to solve this equation to find the value of K. So I can't do this one in my head. This one's kind of tough, but algebraically, what you would do to isolate the variable is let's multiply by 2. 2 times 27 is 54. So I've got 54 equals negative 3K. Divide by negative 3. K is negative 18. K is negative 18. So rewrite the formula with that K value. Y equals negative 18Z over X. That's our formula. Then you plug in those numbers. All right, so we want to plug in Y equals 9 and Z equal 5. So it's in the, notice it's in this position and this position. So you have to pay attention to where the variables are and where they want you to plug in. So Y is 9 equals negative 18 times Z is 5 over X. So when you're solving an equation, I know a lot of times students have problems or have difficulty when the variable's on the bottom. That is kind of tricky, but we can always use our algebra rules to get it off of the bottom. Let's multiply both sides by X, just so that it's not on the bottom anymore. All right, we don't like the variable on the bottom, so we can multiply both sides by X to get it off of the bottom. If you do that, this equation is going to be much easier to look at. 9x equals whatever negative 18 times 5 is, negative 90. All right, that's a lot easier. 9x equals negative 90. So right, divide by 9, you're going to get x equal negative 10.